How to raise your standards and attract a better life. There comes a moment in every person's life when the pain of staying the same outweighs the fear of change. When mediocrity becomes unbearable. When the echo of your untapped potential grows louder than the noise of your excuses. That moment is the beginning. Most people wait for a breakthrough to happen. But the truth is, breakthroughs don't happen to you. They happen because of you. And it all begins when you raise your standards. In this audiobook, you won't just learn how to expect more from life. You'll learn how to expect more from yourself. This is your wake-up call, your invitation, your moment. Let's begin. The power of standards. What they really mean. Most people think their lives are shaped by their goals, their desires, or their dreams. But that's not true. Your life is not defined by what you want. It's defined by what you're willing to accept, by the minimum level of life you're willing to tolerate. That's what your standards are. They're not wishes. They're not hopes. They are the invisible rules you've created about what is okay for you and what is not. You see, your standards are not written on paper. They're written in your habits, in your relationships, in the way you speak to yourself when no one's around. They show up in the quality of your thoughts, the limits of your self-belief, the people you surround yourself with, and how you respond to challenge. They're the invisible boundaries that tell the world, this is how I allow myself to live. And here's the truth no one likes to say out loud. If your life feels small, stuck, or unsatisfying, it's because, on some level, you decided that was okay. You may not have said it out loud. You may not have realized you were doing it, but you accepted it. And what we accept becomes our reality. Every day you wake up, you're making silent agreements with yourself. It's okay if I stay in this job that drains me. It's okay if I keep eating like this. I'll fix it someday. It's okay if I'm not treated with respect. At least I'm not alone. And every time you make that agreement, your standards shrink. And with them, so does your life. The scariest part is how quietly this happens. No alarms, no warning signs, just slow erosion. The erosion of your confidence, the erosion of your courage, the erosion of your self-worth. Until one day, you look in the mirror and don't even recognize the person staring back. You've become a stranger in your own story, watching yourself settle for a life that once would have made you sick to even imagine. The problem isn't that you don't have potential. The problem is that your standards are too low to activate it. You've been waiting for motivation, waiting for inspiration, waiting for someone or something to save you. But motivation isn't coming. What's coming is more of the same. Until you make a decision to raise what you demand of yourself. Think about this. When you truly decide, you will no longer accept being treated poorly in a relationship. Everything changes. Not just the relationship, your energy changes, your tone changes, your presence changes. People feel that. You begin to command a different kind of respect. Not because you forced it, but because you embodied it. That's the power of a raised standard. It rewires how you show up in the world. This applies to every area of your life. Your health isn't about knowledge. It's about what you refuse to tolerate. Your finances aren't about luck. They're about what you demand of yourself in terms of discipline, focus, and belief. Your happiness isn't about chance. It's about whether your internal standards allow you to walk away from what drains you, even when it's comfortable. People say they want a better life, but most of the time, they just want better results without better requirements. And that's not how it works. Life doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you demand through action, commitment, and refusal to lower the bar when things get tough. You don't get the life you dream of. You get the life you settle for. That's the brutal truth. But it's also the most empowering one, because it means you can change everything. Not by working harder, not by chasing more, but by deciding what is no longer acceptable. Standards are power, and if you want more from life, you have to require more from yourself, not someday. Not when it's easy, right now, when it's hardest. Recognizing the cost of settling one of the most dangerous things a person can do in life is settle, not because they don't have dreams, but because they convince themselves that settling is just being realistic. They shrink their expectations, lower their standards, and tell themselves it's maturity, patience, or wisdom. But deep down, they know better. Deep down, they feel the quiet ache of compromise. And over time, that ache turns into numbness. A numbness that spreads across their relationships, their work, their self-esteem, and their joy for living. Settling doesn't announce itself. It doesn't show up in one big moment. It creeps in silently, disguised as practicality. It shows up when you stay in a relationship that makes you feel unseen, because you're afraid to start over. It shows up when you wake up every day to a job that drains your soul, because you tell yourself, at least I have a paycheck. It shows up when you stop dressing the way that makes you feel alive, when you stop learning new things, when you stop taking risks, because it's easier to avoid disappointment than to reach for something greater and face the possibility of failure. That's how settling wins, not with force, but with fatigue, with weariness, with slow surrender. What most people don't realize is that every time you settle, something inside you dies a little. A piece of your confidence fades. A part of your belief in yourself is chipped away. Your standards, your self-worth, your energy, all slowly eroded by the decision to tolerate less than you deserve. It's like rust. You don't see it happening all at once, but eventually it destroys the structure. And by the time you notice, you're not just stuck. You're trapped in a life that no longer reflects who you are or who you could be. But here's the part that hurts the most. Settling doesn't just steal your present. It steals your future. Every time you settle for less than what you're capable of, you push your highest potential further out of reach. The opportunities you could have created, the relationships you could have experienced, the purpose you could have lived, all delayed, all distorted, or even completely lost because of the decision to stay safe instead of step forward. The cost of settling is not just external, it's internal, it's emotional, it's spiritual. It's waking up and feeling like your fire has gone out. It's dragging yourself through routines that no longer inspire you. It's seeing someone else live boldly and feeling bitterness instead of inspiration, not because they're lucky, but because deep down, you know you had that same spark once, and you let it dim. Settling also becomes a habit. Once you do it in one area of life, it spreads. You settle in your health, so your energy drops. That low energy affects your focus, so you settle in your work. You feel unfulfilled, so you settle in your relationships. And soon, your entire life becomes a reflection of decisions you made to avoid discomfort. Not to seek greatness, but here's the truth. Growth hurts too. It's uncomfortable. It's inconvenient. But there's a different kind of pain there. The pain of discipline, of expansion, of breaking through old patterns. That pain leads somewhere. Settling, on the other hand, leads nowhere. It just loops. Day after day, year after year, the same stories, the same habits, the same doubts, until the person you were meant to become feels like a stranger you'll never meet. You have to ask yourself, what has settling already cost you? What have you walked away from, turned down, or silenced within yourself just to stay in something familiar? How many moments of joy have you traded for predictability? How much peace have you sacrificed just to avoid rocking the boat? How many years have passed where you've told yourself next year will be different, but nothing changed because your standards didn't change? And if it cost you that much already, how much more will it take before you say enough? The identity shift. Who do you think you are? There is a reason why most people never break free from the life they've outgrown. It's not because they don't have time. It's not because they don't have talent. It's not even because they lack opportunity. It's because deep down, they are still holding on to an outdated identity, a version of themselves that was shaped by past experiences, old environments, and limiting beliefs they never stopped to question. And as long as they stay loyal to that version, they will keep making decisions that align with who they were, instead of who they are capable of becoming. The truth is, you will never rise higher than the identity you hold for yourself. You might dream big. You might set goals. You might write vision boards and read all the books. But if, deep down, you still see yourself as small, unworthy, broken, average, or stuck, then your behavior will always match that image. You'll sabotage your progress. You'll procrastinate. You'll avoid discomfort. You'll keep playing roles you've outgrown just to make other people comfortable. Because your mind will always fight to stay consistent with who you believe you are. Identity is powerful. It's the foundation of every choice you make. It's the lens through which you view possibility. And most people never question where theirs came from. Maybe you were told as a child that you were too sensitive, so now you bury your emotions and call it strength. Maybe you were told you weren't smart enough, so now you don't even try for new opportunities because you're afraid of looking foolish. Maybe you grew up around chaos, and now you confuse peace with boredom. Or maybe your identity was shaped in survival mode, and now that it's time to grow, you're still living like the struggle is permanent. But survival is not your identity. Struggle is not your personality. And the version of you who was doing the best they could with limited tools is not the version who should be leading your future. At some point, you have to ask yourself a deeper question. Who do I want to become? And what would that version of me never tolerate again? Raising your standards is not just about changing your behavior. It's about changing your identity. Because the version of you who lives at a higher standard doesn't think the same way. They don't talk the same way. They don't shrink to fit. They don't tolerate half effort, half love, half truths. They show up with presence. They move with purpose. They make decisions from vision, not fear. But you will never meet that version if you keep trying to transform your life while clinging to an identity that no longer fits who you're becoming. Identity is not fixed. You are not bound to the person you were yesterday. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to raise your voice. You are allowed to outgrow people, patterns, and places that no longer serve your growth. And you are allowed to stop telling the same story about yourself, especially if that story keeps you stuck in shame, guilt, or smallness. But here's the truth. Changing your identity is not easy. It means letting go of comfort. It means disrupting everything that's familiar. It means becoming someone that the old version of you might not even recognize. And that can feel terrifying, but it's necessary. Because the life you want isn't waiting for the you that's scared. It's waiting for the you that's ready. The you who's brave enough to say, I'm not that person anymore. I've decided who I am now. And I don't need permission to change. The most powerful thing you can ever do is shift the way you see yourself. Because once your identity changes, your standards change. Once your standards change, your actions change. And once your actions change, your entire life begins to move in a new direction. Breaking the cycle. Awareness plus anger equals power. Before you can change your life, before you can raise your standards, before you can become who you were always meant to be, you have to wake up to where you are right now. And that awakening doesn't come from more information. It doesn't come from positive quotes or shallow motivation. Real change, the kind that shakes you at the core, begins with radical awareness. You have to see yourself clearly, not the version you show to the world, not the version you pretend to be when you're around people, but the raw, unfiltered truth of your life as it is, the patterns you've been repeating, the excuses you've been making, the pain you've been avoiding, and the person you've been settling for. Awareness is uncomfortable. It strips away the stories. It exposes the lies you've told yourself to make your stagnation feel acceptable. But without it, you're just walking in circles, decorating the same cage and calling it progress. Nothing changes until you see the full picture, not just where you want to be, but where you actually are, and not just what's happening around you, but what you've allowed, what you've created, and what you've chosen, consciously or not. But awareness alone is not enough. Awareness without action becomes regret. You need fuel. You need a fire. And for many people, that fire begins with something they were taught to avoid: anger. We're told that anger is a bad thing, that it's ugly, that it makes us weak. But that's only true when anger is misused, when it's turned outward in destruction, or inward into silence. But when anger is understood, when it's directed with clarity, it becomes fuel. It becomes a weapon against your limitations. It becomes the ignition that burns through your apathy and forces you to rise. Anger, when used with intention, is a gift. It's the moment you look around at your life and say, no more. No more settling for relationships that leave you empty. No more avoiding your purpose because it's inconvenient. No more waiting for permission to be the version of yourself you know you were born to be. That anger isn't weakness. It's the awakening of your personal power. It's not about blaming others. It's about finally confronting yourself, the part of you that's allowed comfort to kill your potential. There is a healthy kind of rage that every person needs to experience at least once in their life. It's the kind of rage that builds. When you realize you've spent years hiding, pleasing, pretending, minimizing your light, and silencing your truth. It's the rage that comes from finally understanding how much time you've lost to fear. How many doors you never opened. How many times you talked yourself out of something because you didn't think you were worthy. That rage is not your enemy. It's your turning point. It means you've opened your eyes. It means you've had enough. But don't waste that fire. Don't numb it. Don't bury it under distraction, denial, or guilt. Use it. Let it guide you toward higher ground. Let it fuel the decisions you've been avoiding. Let it demand more from your habits, your mindset, and your boundaries. Let it become the voice that interrupts the loop of excuses in your head and says, I'm not living like this anymore. Because once you become fully aware of where you are, and you allow yourself to feel the full weight of what it's cost you, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, you unlock a new level of urgency. No more waiting for motivation. No more relying on discipline alone. Now you're moving from pain, from truth, from the raw power of finally waking up. That's how you break the cycle, not through shame, not through blame, but through awareness and the kind of honest, clean anger that says, I deserve more than this, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to become the person who can claim it. Set higher standards with clarity, and precision. Raising your standards is not just about wanting more. It's about defining more. Too many people say, I want a better life, but they never take the time to get brutally specific about what that actually means. They say, I want to be healthier, but don't define what health looks like to them. They say, I want a better relationship, but haven't clarified what that relationship would require from their partner. And more importantly, from themselves. They say, I want more money, but have no idea how much or why. Without clarity, the mind gets lost. Without precision, your actions get scattered. And when your vision is vague, your standards stay low, because you can't raise the bar on something you haven't clearly built in your mind. High standards begin with clear definitions. What are you no longer available for? What are the minimums that you will no longer tolerate from people, from situations, and from yourself? What does excellence look like in your daily habits? Not just in theory, but in your real, imperfect life. This isn't about perfection. It's about alignment. It's about getting so clear on what matters that anything less becomes obvious, intolerable, and uninviting. Clarity gives you direction, and direction gives you power. When your standards are clear, your decisions become faster. You don't second guess. You don't linger in places that drain you. You don't beg for validation or settle for crumbs. You simply know, this is who I am now. This is the level I operate on. And anything that doesn't match that doesn't belong. That kind of clarity isn't arrogance. It's leadership, self-leadership. And you don't need anyone else's permission to claim it. But most people avoid this level of clarity because it forces responsibility. Because once you clearly define your standards, you can't pretend. You don't know better. You can't keep blaming your past. You can't hide behind confusion. Clarity forces you to face the truth that the gap between where you are and where you want to be is not due to lack of potential. It's due to a lack of precision in your standards. And that gap will never close until you decide to close. It does start with your physical standards. What does it mean for you to honor your body? Is it just about looking better? Or is it about energy, longevity, discipline? Get specific. What kind of food will you no longer put in your body? Not because someone else told you, but because your standards won't allow it anymore. What kind of rest, movement, or recovery will become non-negotiable? This kind of self-respect builds power over time. It becomes your foundation. And from that foundation, everything changes. You stop feeling drained by people and start feeling energized by truth. You stop molding yourself to fit spaces that no longer deserve you. You stop chasing acceptance because you've already accepted yourself. Enforcing your standards will cost you things: approval, comfort, even relationships. But what you gain in return is far greater: alignment, clarity, confidence, peace. The life you're dreaming of doesn't come through what you allow. It comes through what you're brave enough to no longer allow. Becoming a magnet for betterance, you have the courage to enforce your standards. Something extraordinary begins to happen. You start to attract the life you once thought was out of reach. You become a magnet, not because you're trying harder or forcing outcomes, but because you have aligned your inner world with the reality you deserve. This magnetic power is not about luck or chance. It's about energetic truth. It's about living in such a way that your very presence signals to the universe and to the people around you that you are no longer willing to settle for less than your worth. Attraction starts from within. When you raise your standards and live by them authentically, you change how you see yourself and how others see you. You carry an invisible energy of confidence, clarity, and self-respect that can't be faked or ignored. This energy is like a beacon. It draws people, opportunities, and experiences that match your new level of worthiness. But it's important to understand that this magnetism doesn't come from arrogance or entitlement. It comes from quiet, unwavering belief in your own value. It comes from having done the hard work of knowing yourself and protecting your boundaries. Think about the last time you met someone who truly embodied their standards. Someone who walked through a room like they belonged, who spoke with conviction, who didn't apologize for wanting more. Chances are, you noticed them immediately. You felt the pull, whether it was respect, admiration, or curiosity. That pull is real. It's the power of alignment. And it's available to you. The truth is, when your internal standards rise, your external world must follow. This is a law of life that cannot be broken. You cannot live in chaos inside and expect peace outside. You cannot carry doubt and invite certainty. You cannot settle for toxicity and expect love. The energy you put out is the energy you bring back. You become a mirror for the universe, reflecting back exactly what you believe you deserve. This means if you want a better life, a better relationship, better opportunities, you have to become the person who naturally fits into those things. Not by changing yourself to please others, but by growing into the person who commands respect, love, and success simply by being who they are. This is why raising standards isn't just about setting rules. It's about becoming a force of nature, grounded in your truth and unwilling to compromise on it. But this magnetism also calls for patience and trust. When you first start enforcing your standards, you might feel isolated. People you once relied on may pull away. Doors may close. You may question if you've lost your way. But this is the clearing phase, necessary space for the right things to enter, like a garden that must be cleared of weeds before the flowers can bloom. Your life needs this space to grow in alignment. Every time you stand firm in your value, every time you choose yourself over comfort, you strengthen this magnetic pull. Opportunities begin to show up that didn't before. People come into your life who honor your time, your boundaries, your vision. Doors open without you having to knock endlessly. You begin to move from chasing life to allowing life to flow to you. Magnetism also means embracing your full story, your strengths, your scars, your past mistakes, and your triumphs with love and acceptance. When you stop hiding parts of yourself out of shame or fear, you become authentically attractive. Authenticity breeds trust. Trust attracts meaningful connections. And meaningful connections open the door to a better life, one that is rich in love, growth, and possibility. So ask yourself, are you ready to be the magnet? Are you ready to live with such clarity, courage, and self-love that the life you want is no longer a distant dream, but a natural consequence of who you have become? This is not a fantasy. It's a choice, and it's a powerful one. The role of consistency and patience in transformation torrents is not a moment. It is not a lightning strike or an overnight miracle. It is a slow, deliberate, and often unseen process that unfolds in the quiet corners of your everyday life. Many people make the mistake of believing that raising their standards will instantly change their reality. That the moment they decide to be better, the world will instantly respond. But real change is far more patient, far more persistent. It requires a dedication to consistency and an unshakable trust in the process. Even when results seem invisible or far away, you see, consistency is the heartbeat of transformation. It's the steady rhythm that turns small actions into habits, habits into character, and character into destiny. It is in the repetition of choosing your standards, day after day, moment after moment, that the foundation of your new life is built. It might be waking up a little earlier to take care of yourself, speaking your truth in conversations you'd once avoided, saying no to the things that drain your energy even when the easier path is to say yes. These small, sometimes invisible choices, when made consistently, carve out a new version of you that doesn't know how to settle anymore. But consistency is not easy. It demands resilience. It demands you show up for yourself on days when motivation has vanished. When doubts swirl in your mind, when the weight of past failures threatens to pull you back into old patterns, it means pushing through the discomfort of growth, the awkwardness, the loneliness, the fear, because you know that on the other side of that discomfort lies the life you've been dreaming of. When you keep showing up despite how hard it gets, you are telling yourself and the universe a powerful truth. I am committed to my standards, no matter what. Yet, consistency alone is not enough without patience. Patience is the quiet warrior that sits beside you when progress seems slow or invisible. It's the understanding that transformation is like planting a seed in soil. You don't see the roots growing beneath the surface, but that doesn't mean they're not there. You don't see the fruit before its season, but that doesn't mean it won't come. Patience is trust in the timing of your own life, in the unseen work happening behind the scenes. In the slow unfolding of your greatness, patience also means releasing the need for instant validation or quick results. It's about resisting the urge to compare your journey to others or to measure your progress by fleeting successes. Instead, it invites you to embrace the process fully, the struggles, the setbacks, the small victories, knowing that each moment is an essential thread in the fabric of your transformation. When you are patient, you stop fighting against the flow of life and start working with it. You stop trying to force change and start allowing it to evolve naturally, with grace and power. Then move to your emotional standards. How will you allow yourself to be treated? What kind of tone, energy, and presence do you demand in your relationships? What kind of communication is required for someone to stay in your inner circle? And, just as importantly, how will you treat yourself? How will you speak to yourself in the mirror, in your mind, in moments of failure or stress? Because no one rises above the way they speak to themselves. If your inner voice is cruel, scattered, or doubtful, your external standards will match it. Now ask yourself, what are your financial standards? Not just I want more money, but how much? For what purpose? What level of work ethic, focus, creativity, or risk are you willing to embrace to reach it? What kind of chaos are you no longer willing to entertain just to feel secure? Your financial world will always reflect the standards you hold around value, discipline, and what you believe you deserve. And finally, your time. One of the highest forms of standard setting is how you protect your time. Who gets access to it? What kind of tasks do you spend your life energy on? Do your days reflect your dreams or your distractions? When you raise your standards around time, everything changes. You stop being busy and start being effective. You stop being reactive and start living with intention. This is not about controlling life. It's about designing it. When your standards are clear and precise, life has structure. You know what to say yes to. You know when to walk away. You know when to push harder and when to rest. You move with power, not pressure. And that shift from vague desire to defined standard is what begins to separate the life you wish for from the life you live. Aligning your environment and habits since you've raised your standards. and defined them with clarity. The next step is to protect those standards with the spaces you live in and the patterns you live by. Because the truth is, you can't expect transformation if your environment is built for your old self. You cannot rise into your future while standing in a room that keeps dragging you back into your past. Your environment, both physical and emotional, either reinforces your growth or sabotages it in silence. It either speaks life into your new standards or whispers reminders of your old limitations. Take a hard look around you, your room, your home, your workspace, your digital space. Is it designed to inspire you or to distract you? Is it cluttered with things that no longer reflect who you are becoming? Is your physical space filled with reminders of the version of you that settled, the version that stayed small, the version that tolerated chaos? You cannot elevate your life while living in a place that's emotionally or physically weighed down. It's not about aesthetics. It's about energy. Your environment speaks to you every day through what it offers and what it tolerates. But your environment goes far beyond furniture or walls. It includes the people you keep close, the conversations you participate in, the energy you expose yourself to, the voices you listen to, in person, online, and in your own head. And every person, every interaction, is either adding to your alignment or pulling you off track. If your circle is filled with people who normalize mediocrity, who mock ambition, who downplay discipline, who resent your growth, you will subconsciously begin to lower your standards just to keep the peace. Not because you're weak, but because humans are designed to adapt. And if your environment keeps rewarding the old version of you, staying average will start to feel easier than becoming great. This is why aligning your environment is not optional. It is critical, because your environment sets the tone for your habits. And your habits, not your goals, are what build your life. Motivation is temporary, but habits are loyal. They show up whether you feel like it or not. And if your daily habits don't reflect the standards you set, it's only a matter of time before your vision fades and you fall back into what's familiar. Ask yourself, what habits are still connected to your lower self? What do you keep doing out of comfort, even though you know it's keeping you stuck? Is it scrolling for hours to avoid facing the silence? Is it waking up late and rushing through the morning? Is it overcommitting to things you don't care about just to avoid conflict or rejection? Every small habit either strengthens your new identity or feeds your old one. And nothing is neutral. Every decision, every routine, every pattern. It all matters. When your habits are in conflict with your standards, you feel it. That internal tug, that frustration, that quiet voice saying, I know I'm capable of more than this. And that frustration is not failure, it's feedback. It's your inner self reminding you that it's time to stop hoping for change and start creating systems that make change inevitable. Because no matter how high your standards are, if your habits aren't built to support them, you'll always fall back to the level of your routines. Change starts with one question. What would the highest version of me do every day? How would they start the morning? How would they take care of their body, their mind, their money, their relationships? What would they stop tolerating from themselves and from others? And more importantly, what environments would they choose to stay in, and which ones would they walk away from without apology? When you begin aligning your surroundings and your habits with the person you say you want to become, something shifts. Life becomes less chaotic and more intentional. You stop chasing change and start embodying it. Because success is not built in loud moments of decision. It's built in the quiet repetitions, in the tiny choices you make when no one is watching. And those choices are shaped by the spaces you live in and the behaviors you normalize. The courage to enforce your standards. It's one thing to raise your standards. It's another thing entirely to enforce them, especially when doing so means risking conflict, rejection, misunderstanding, or loss. This is where most people shrink, not because they don't want a better life, but because they don't want to disappoint people, stand alone, or be labeled as too much. So they quietly betray themselves in small, unnoticeable ways. They say yes when their soul is screaming no. They smile through mistreatment. They accept half effort, half love, half truths, and they convince themselves they're being kind, when really, they're just afraid. Raising your standards is only powerful when you are willing to defend them, not with anger, not with ego, but with calm, grounded courage. The kind of courage that says, I no longer abandon myself just to keep peace with others. The kind of courage that doesn't require permission, applause, or even understanding. Because when your standards shift, your life must shift with them, and that almost always comes with resistance. People will test your standards, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unconsciously. They're used to who you used to be. The version who over-explained, who stayed quiet to avoid confrontation, who kept the peace at the cost of your own voice. So when you start to say, no, I won't accept this anymore, don't expect everyone to celebrate. Some will question you. Some will guilt you. Some will walk away. That doesn't mean you're wrong. That means you're growing. Growth threatens comfort, not just your own, but the comfort of those around you. And enforcing your standards often means being willing to be uncomfortable in the short term for the sake of long-term alignment. It means speaking the hard truth when silence would be easier. It means holding firm to your boundaries even when your hands are shaking. It means walking away from things that once defined you, jobs, friendships, relationships, habits, because the cost of staying is now to hide. This kind of enforcement requires self-trust. Because you will be misunderstood, you will be told you've changed, and you have. That's the point. The world around you is just catching up. You have to trust that your new standards aren't about being difficult. They're about being honest. Honest about what you need. Honest about what you value. Honest about what you're no longer willing to sacrifice just to be liked, chosen, or accepted. And here's the hard truth most people don't want to hear. If you don't enforce your standards, no one else will. People treat you according to the energy you allow. If you constantly explain away disrespect, you normalize it. If you keep tolerating the bare minimum, it becomes your new maximum. If you don't take your own standards seriously, neither will anyone else. You're either teaching the world how to honor you, or you're teaching it how to overlook you. And that lesson starts with you. Enforcement is not about being rigid or cold. It's about being consistent. It's about making your boundaries real, not just theoretical. It's easy to say you won't tolerate lateness, dishonesty, or emotional inconsistency. But when those moments happen, will you speak up? Will you walk away if needed? Or will you freeze, fall silent, and tell yourself it's not a big deal? Every time you back down from your own standard, you chip away at your identity. And every time you stand firm, even when it's hard, you reinforce a deeper belief. I am someone who honors my own value. Asterisk. Consistency and patience together create an unbreakable foundation for lasting change. Without consistency, patience becomes passive waiting, hope without action. Without patience, consistency becomes frantic, unsustainable effort, burnout, disguised as dedication. But when combined, they fuel a momentum that carries you through every challenge, every doubt, every moment of fatigue. They transform the impossible into inevitable. Think of the great achievers in history, the artists, the athletes, the leaders. None of them reached their highest peaks by sprinting alone. They ran marathons, they built routines, they kept returning to their vision day after day, regardless of the obstacles. Their success was born not just from talent, but from the commitment to show up again and again, and the patience to trust the slow dance of growth. This truth applies to your life as well. When you embrace consistency, you create trust with yourself. When you cultivate patience, you create peace within the process. Together, they allow you to embody your new standards fully, not as a fleeting phase, but as a permanent evolution. So, ask yourself, are you ready to commit to your growth with steady, unwavering consistency? Are you willing to be patient with your journey, even when the destination feels distant? Because that commitment to show up for yourself again and again, and to trust the timing of your own transformation, is where the magic truly begins. Sustaining your growth and embracing your new reality, raising your standards and transforming your life is only the beginning. The true challenge lies in sustaining the growth over time, especially when the initial excitement fades and the realities of life pull at your resolve. Change, by its very nature, is dynamic. It asks us not only to become someone new, but to stay that person day after day, through every season of life when everything inside and outside of us is pushing for comfort, familiarity, and old habits. Sustaining your growth requires a new level of commitment, one that's rooted not just in desire, but in identity. It's the difference between wanting to live differently and deciding that this is who you are now. When you truly embrace your new reality, your standards don't feel like rules you have to follow. They become the essence of your being, woven into your thoughts, your actions, your relationships. They become your default setting. But embracing this new reality means facing a powerful tension, the pull of your old self, the temptations to revert to what's easy, and the external pressures that don't always support your evolution. People around you may expect you to act as you always have. Your environment may not reflect your new standards. Old fears and doubts may resurface, whispering lies that your growth is temporary or undeserved. This tension is natural, And it's where most people falter, not because they lack strength, but because they underestimate how fierce the battle is between the comfort of the familiar and the promise of the new. To sustain your growth, you must become your own strongest ally. This means cultivating self-compassion and grace. It means understanding that setbacks, struggles, and moments of weakness are not signs of failure, but markers of the journey itself. When you trip, you don't abandon your standards, you lean into them harder. You don't judge yourself harshly, you remind yourself of how far you've come and the reasons why you started. Your inner dialogue becomes your most critical tool. The words you speak to yourself must be rooted in love and encouragement, not criticism and doubt. Imagine talking to your past self with kindness and respect. Now extend that same compassion to your present self, the one working tirelessly to hold on to new standards amid old storms. When you nurture your inner voice, you build resilience. You create a foundation strong enough to withstand the inevitable challenges ahead. Sustaining growth also demands ongoing reflection and recalibration. Your standards are not fixed, they evolve as you evolve. What felt like a breakthrough 6 months ago might feel like a baseline today. This evolution requires honesty and curiosity, a willingness to ask yourself, are my standards still serving my highest self? Have I grown beyond them? The ability to adapt without compromising your core values is a sign of true maturity. It shows that your growth is not about perfection, but about progress and authenticity. Surrounding yourself with a supportive environment becomes even more important. As you embrace your new reality, growth is not meant to be a lonely path. Seek out those who reflect and reinforce your standards, people who celebrate your wins, challenge you to be better, and hold space for your vulnerability. Let go of relationships that drain your energy or pull you back into old patterns. Remember, sustaining your growth means protecting your energy fiercely and intentionally. Finally, embracing your new reality means owning your story fully, the light and the shadows, the victories and the scars. Your past does not disqualify you from your future. It enriches it. Each chapter has shaped your resilience, your wisdom, your capacity to dream bigger and live better. When you accept yourself wholly, you stop shrinking to fit into old boxes or outdated expectations. You step into the fullness of your potential with courage and authenticity. This is the moment where transformation becomes freedom. Freedom not from struggle, but freedom from the chains of who you once thought you had to be. It's the freedom to live boldly, to love deeply, and to create a life that mirrors the highest version of yourself, not because it's easy, but because you've chosen it every single day. Conclusion: your life begins where your standards. As we reach the end of this journey together, take a moment to breathe in everything you've learned, felt, and awakened within yourself. Raising your standards is not a one-time decision. It is a lifelong commitment to honoring your worth, protecting your peace, and choosing a life that reflects the greatness already inside you. Remember, your standards are the gatekeepers of your destiny. They determine who you become, the people you attract, and the experiences you allow into your world. When you raise those standards, you are sending a bold message. I deserve more. I am more. This message resonates far beyond your own life. It ripples out into every relationship, every opportunity, every dream. This path is not without struggle. You will face resistance, doubt, and moments where the old way feels safer. But within you lies a power stronger than any fear, the power to rise, to enforce your value with courage, to magnetize the life you've always imagined. You have the ability to stand firm, to show up consistently, to be patient in the process, and to embrace the transformation with open arms. Today, you hold the key to a better life, the kind of life where you don't just survive, but thrive, where your dreams are not distant hopes, but your daily reality, where your standards are not burdens, but blessings guiding you home to yourself. So go forward with relentless faith in your own worth. Step into your new reality boldly, knowing that every choice you make is an act of self-love. The life you deserve is waiting for you on the other side of your standards. And the moment you decide to never settle again, that moment you become unstoppable. Your life begins where your standards rise. Now is your time.